I'm Stephen and I'm the third generation of the Ware family to have farmed this 121 hectares farm called Throne Farm in Webley. We have a pullet rearing site which is like a kindergarten for laying hens. There's also an agroforestry system with top fruit, cider, apples, with in between growing cereals and pulses. We have a couple of environmental schemes and then some apple storage back at the farm. Around 2007 we felt we had a pretty good circular economy on the farm. The wheat would be grown to feed the chickens and the chickens would poop to create muck that would feed the wheat. But they do say you can have too much of a good thing, and we started to see levels of nutrition rising in our soils. So we undertook extensive soil testing. But it wasn't really until 2015 when we started to do a sap analysis on the crops that we found that even though we had high levels of phosphorus in the soils, they were deficient in the plants. So that was a sort of defining moment really, where we started to reduce the inputs and try to control exactly what we were doing and adding to the soil to try and get the soil working. So that we could start to break down that phosphorus that was in the soil. I wouldn't expect all the farmers to go to the extremes that we've gone to, but it's the easy wins that really make the difference. And this is one that we found. I do use some poultry litter still on the ground sparingly where I can, where the analysis allows me. But if I do, I always add some carbon, or a wood chip in this case, with it, or whatever you have lying around. It makes a huge difference to the soil. It feeds the soil, but also, with the carbon to nitrogen ratio about 30:1, it also stabilises the poultry litter, so you don't lose the ammonium as ammonia. It doesn't gas off; it captures it, it holds it in, and allows the soil nice slow release. Early on in our lower input farming systems, I did actually genuinely learn it's more systems based. Here we've got a cover crop, and one of the things that resonated with me was that 30% of the photosynthetic sugar that's produced actually gets fed down the plant back into the roots. What that says is that crop cover gives you plenty of food for the soil life, but also pumps carbon back down into the soil. So at any time a cover crop has a use, and it's really protecting the soil as well. What we've got here is a fairly simple mix of grass and Alsike clover. I mean, the textbooks tend to tell you to have a diverse mix, and I agree, but it's all about getting it established. It's better to have something here and come in the ground, doing good for the soils, rather than an elaborate system that costs you a lot elaborate mix that costs you a lot of money, and you might not get the benefit for that. This is a little bit of an alternative to a cover crop. It's a stale seedbed situation where we've allowed whatever is here to grow up. Now we are going to have to come in probably and mow it before it goes to seed, but to my mind that's a lot cheaper than actually buying and cultivating a cover crop, and it's doing its job. It's holding the soil in and providing the liquid carbon down to the soil roots and feeding the soil. So we've talked about not building up phosphorus or similar nutrients in our land, but how do we deal with legacy phosphorus that maybe is already in the soil? Phosphorus can be an issue because it's very pernicious. It basically can lock your soil up. It does that for several reasons, one of which you'll never hear about a phosphorus gas, so it doesn't become diffuse air pollution. It's a bit like burning a bonfire at night and the black smoke disappears. You cannot see that issue like you would with nitrates or nitrogen. And the second reason is that it acts like the clay colloid. So it's a voracious anion. It has a triple negative charge, and what that means is it will tie up cations potentially in competition with the clay colloid. That's why it's a problem when soil gets washed off and away into the river. That's why phosphorus gets carried with it. So what we've done to try and ensure that we don't have any legacy phosphorus issues in our drainage water is we've built and constructed a phosphorus filter wetland. You can see there are 2 ponds in this system. Effectively, we've taken the land drain from the field, from the 2 or 3 fields on the southern side of Gabbridge Lane here, and they run into the first pond here and then overspill into the second pond before it returns back to the ditch. And the idea is that we've planted these 2 ponds up with bulrushes, grasses and a whole mixture of herbs, and all these plants are phosphorus hungry wetland plants, and they'll suck up basically any nutrients such as phosphorus out of the drainage water before the drainage water returns to the ditch in a clean form. Here we're at the western end of the farm where the Newbridge Brook meets our field, and as you can see it's running quite brown at the moment. Obviously the ditches of ours that you saw earlier were running clear. It's quite difficult really to relate how my farm affects the River Wye. I mean, it's at least 15 kilometres drive to the river in that direction, but the water flows down here. It's flown from my ditches into the stream. It'll flow into the brook, into the Stretford Brook, into the River Arrow, into the River Lug, and it's at least 50 kilometres before it reaches the Wye. So I suppose with 4,000 kilometres squared of the Wye catchment, which sort of the catchment defines the river, we've all got a part to play, and an additive effect. If we all have a little bit of a benefit from our land, then the whole thing's going to come together a lot better for the River Wye.